Welcome back. Okay, let's apply what we've learned. We have talked about the correct mathematical way to find a least common denominator is to do a factor tree, to break your denominators into prime terms and then take the most of every prime term. Let's apply that to algebra. So, I'm looking here. I'm going to eventually want to add these fractions. Right now I can't add them because they don't have the same denominator. All right, we're going to fix that. We're going to find the least common denominator. Is x squared minus 16 prime? No, because we can apply one of our rules of factoring. Remember the big three rules: GCF, difference of perfect squares, trinomial. Those are the ones you're going to hear the most. All right, so is there a GCF? No. Is this difference of perfect squares? Yes, it has the subtraction symbol. X squared has an even exponent. 16 is a perfect square. So I'm going to factor. I'm going to put my two parentheses. This is going to be x times x. 16 is 4 times 4. When we factor difference of perfect squares, our answers are conjugates. Change the middle symbol. Good. Let's go to our next denominator. 2x cubed minus 8x squared. All right, how do we factor that? Well, go in order. The first rule of factoring is GCF. What do these terms have in common? Well, they both can be divided by 2, and they can both be divided by x squared. So we're going to factor out a 2x squared, and you're going to tell me what's left. 2x cubed divided by 2x squared would be just x. Negative 8x squared divided by 2x squared would be negative 4. Okay? By now, you should realize that beginning module is all about polynomials is very important, and all the rules of factoring are very important. Now, here we go. This is not the least common denominator. To get the least common denominator, you take the most of every prime term. Now, if you look closely, when we do this in algebra, a least common denominator could be a constant, a number by itself. It could be a letter, a variable by itself, and it could be what's in parentheses. So let's start with a number. Do we have a number by itself? Not in that denominator, but here we do. We have a 2. So we need the 2. Do we have a variable by itself? No, that's connected. That's connected. There we go. We need an x squared. Now we look at our parentheses. Well, this denominator has an x plus 4. This does not. We take the most. This has 1x plus 4. This has no x plus 4s. So we need the x plus 4. We also have an x minus 4. One here and one here. They have the same amount, so we take one of those. So this least common denominator is going to be the 2x squared times x plus 4 times x minus 4. That's going to become your new denominator. Do not multiply that out. Leave it alone. You'll see why in the previous next videos coming up. Okay, let's try another one. I want to learn how to subtract these fractions, these rational expressions. Again, I'm not going to be able to subtract them right now because our denominators are not the same. So we're going to need a least common denominator. So the rule is to find the least common denominator. You want your denominators in lowest terms. They need to be factored completely. So let's start with b plus 1. Can we factor that? Well, is there a GCF? No. The only thing you divide a letter and a number by is 1, and 1 is not going to change that. Is it difference of perfect squares? Nope, no difference. They're not perfect squares. Is it a trinomial? Nope, there's not 3 terms. It can't be grouping, it's not 4 terms, and it can't be a sum of perfect cubes, because to be a sum of perfect cubes, your exponent would have to be a multiple of 3. 3, 6, 9. So this expression, this binomial, is in lowest terms. It's factored. What I would do is I'd put parentheses around it to make sure you understand that. Plus keeps those guys together. They're like glue. All right? Now I have my denominator 5b. Well, 5 is prime, right? 5 is in lowest terms. And the letter b is in lowest terms. So this can't be factored. It's already in lowest terms. So again, to find the LCD in algebra, We are looking for a number by itself, a variable by itself, and what's stuck in parentheses. Okay, we have a number, 5. We have a variable, b. And we have a parenthesis that's in lowest terms, b plus 1. So this least common denominator is going to be 5 times b plus 1. And that would be your least common denominator. This one was in lowest terms, so really we did exactly what we do in elementary school. If your denominators are prime, you just multiply them together. So think back to arithmetic. If my denominator is a 2 and a 3, the least common denominator is 6. 2 is prime, 3 is prime, so we multiply, we get 6. That's what we did right here. 5 was prime, b was prime, and this parentheses was in lowest term prime. So we just multiplied them together. Unlike over here, where these denominators were not prime, they could get broken down using your rules of factoring. Okay, so it's going to be very important that you go back over your rules of factoring to get a least common denominator. Now that we know how to do this, let's apply it to adding and subtracting fractions.